Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 27. And finally, the Ra's al Ghul has come to Capes on the Couch. That was supposed to be a lot more epic than it actually was.
Which really describes just about everything we do, so...
Fair point.
Yeah, par for the course.
It was one of those things that sounded a lot better in my head. I was like, oh man, I'm going to do this awesome rock intro. It's going to be great. Ra's al Ghul, la 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 la.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a whole thing, but except I just kind of crapped out halfway through the introduction because as I was saying it, I was like, this is not going to sound as great as I think it's going to.
Nope. Oh well.
But, you know, hey, I tried.
Yeah. Always worth the effort.
Before we get started, as always, you can find us through our website, capesonthecouch.live. We are distributed through the Libsyn Network. We're on Google, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and soon to be Spotify. I'm just waiting for the approval on that. Hopefully that will come very, very soon. And we also have our Patreon page where you can subscribe at the $1, $3, $5, and $10 levels. So please check out the show. And if you like what you hear, subscribe, leave a positive rating review. We're on Facebook, on Twitter. I've been very, very active on Twitter lately, spreading the gospel of Capes on the Couch, as it were, telling numerous folks that are looking for podcast recommendations to check out our show, as well as check out our friends over at Popcorn Psychology, whom we will be doing a crossover episode with in the next couple of weeks. And that's going to be on the Incredible Hulk. Very excited about that.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to like those episodes when they're angry.
It's going to be a monster-sized episode, I can tell you that. It's definitely going to be well longer than our usual hour, but that's because we're going to have 5 total people talking about the Hulk. In deference to the hosts, we're going to expand the scope of the discussion of Bruce Banner just a tad beyond the comics. We will get into some of his other media appearances as well, because for Popcorn, we're going to be talking to them about the Ed Norton movie. And my cat is coming in the room and deciding that he wants to have fun with the microphone cords. Get out of here. I love him dearly. He's a tubby little guy, but he's very chatty. Where was I? Popcorn Psychology. Yes. So you can check them out. Please subscribe and give them a listen. They've got some great content. They analyze the psychiatric and mental health issues of blockbuster films. So I know they're currently in the midst of doing their Halloween month. They did Psycho. A couple other horror type films coming up. So that should be a lot of fun. We're definitely looking forward to that. But this week we are finally, as I alluded to in the half aborted intro, we are finally getting around to Ra's al Ghul. Raz.
Hey man, as long as it begins with an R, ends with an S, and everyone knows Al Ghul.
Yes. Mr. Al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul from DC Comics, created by Julius Schwartz, Dennis O'Neil, and Neal Adams in Batman number 232, June of 1971. Here's the cool thing. His name translates from Arabic to the demon's head, or head of the ghoul.
That's just awesome.
Yeah. Julius Schwartz is the one who came up with the idea, and then he gave it to Denny O'Neil and Neal Adams, and they ran with it. And they have turned him into one of Batman's most formidable recurring foes, I would argue. And certainly from a character standpoint, I think Ra's appreciates knowing that he is one of the top tier Batman Rogues Gallery members.
Oh, absolutely, especially with his longevity. And no, I don't mean that as a joke. I mean, he really is able to be placed in so many different situations because everyone respects him. Once he shows up on the scene, things get real.
Absolutely. So Ra's al Ghul was born 600 years ago in the Arabian peninsula to a tribe of nomads, and he eventually became a doctor, and he discovered Lazarus Pits, which physically rejuvenate the user but take a mental toll.
Right. So think anti-psychiatry. We're trying to make the best of the one life you have. He doesn't care if your psyche gets worse while prolonging your life.
So over the centuries, because he continually uses and abuses the Lazarus Pits. He becomes a genius, a capable fighter. He accumulates vast wealth, a number of skills, but over the decades and over the centuries, he comes to hate humanity because of their destruction of the environment. So he initially starts off as an eco-terrorist, and his goal is to eliminate much of the world's population through a virus. So he's trying to genetically engineer, as it were, a way to destroy a good portion of the population. And I think that this is something that he shares in common with a certain Marvel villain. His name's not coming to me. I wonder.
Okay. Yeah. Not to mention, if you have any guesses as to who this is, we did an episode on that character.
You're right. We did.
Okay.
Let's not make any snap judgments about him.
Wow, we're really, really running this into the ground. Okay.
And just making grooves like in his chin.
Yeah, wow.
Thanos. Talking about Thanos.
Really?
Thanos.
Oh, okay. Okay. You know what? I always liked that name because it had to do with the idea of the destruction of all the universe, but this is not supposed to be about Thanos. It's supposed to be about the demon's head. So let's get back on topic.
Fair point. Fair point. So in his first appearance, Ra's al Ghul has deduced Batman's secret identity because he figures out Batman has to be wealthy if he wants to afford all of those wonderful toys. Where does he get all of those wonderful toys? So he figures out he's got to be pretty rich. And so he does some legwork and he figures out, Bruce Wayne's the only one who's bought the stuff that would be necessary in order to set himself up as Batman. So Bruce Wayne must be Batman. He determines that he is the most suitable heir to his empire. So he creates a trap to kidnap Robin and test Bruce.
Now, when you think about this, it's the ultimate mic drop in terms of just figuring out exactly who Batman is. I know outside of it, we always make the joke that secret identities are easy to discover. But if you put people in real life situations, how many things do we not know about our next door neighbor? So that's not that surprising. And it's really cool they did it that way to show just how awesome Ra's is. At the same time, you are able to determine who he is, and yet with all of the things that he's done, why did you think that he would be an heir doing what you do? That doesn't match up in the slightest.
Yeah, he got a little short-sighted there, I suppose. So his daughter Talia was also used as part of the trap. So here's the thing about Talia al Ghul, and we're not going to get into the whole thing because she's a whole separate character, but she falls in love with Bruce, and he reciprocates those feelings. So they have this on-again, off-again relationship that ultimately culminates in the birth of a son, Damian. And Damian is a very cool character. Maybe we'll get into him because he's got a whole host of issues himself, but that's for a later episode, just as Talia is for a later episode. So stick around and maybe eventually we'll get around to those guys. But for right now, we'll stick with Ra's.
Oh, yeah, I can't imagine. Actually, that's not true. I got to read about the family dynamics. It's pretty awesome.
Ra's is an integral part of the Tower of Babel story, which happens to be just one of my favorite Justice League stories. I just really like the setup. I like the idea behind the plot, the notion that Batman has contingency plans for taking down each member of the Justice League should they go rogue. So Ra's finds them, and he uses them with stunning effectiveness. I mean, Ra's puts them all into play, and he sets Martian Manhunter on fire, and he hits the Flash with a bullet, so he continually gets these seizures. The ultimate just way that he absolutely messes with Batman, he steals the graves of his parents. He steals the corpses of Thomas and Martha Wayne, and Batman, who's the only one who would otherwise be able to figure this out, is far too distracted trying to figure out what happened to his parents, because Ra's knows if you want to hit Batman, hit him with mommy and daddy and you'll take him down. Simple as that. And so that is just a major, it's an awesome move on his part. It's a total dick move, but it's brilliant. And that shows you just how much of a mastermind Ra's al Ghul is.
Yeah, he does not play fair. I mean, isn't that from The Art of War? You know, the idea is never have a fair fight. Just win it from the start.
Yeah. So that storyline actually ended up being turned into an animated film, Justice League Doom, where they replaced Ra's al Ghul with Vandal Savage. and they tweaked it a little bit, but it was still fairly faithful overall to the general story. Like I said, just one of my favorite Justice League stories. Not that I have a ton. I'm certainly more of a Marvel guy than a DC guy, but of the stories that I have read, Tower of Babel, I always liked. Plus, I like the story of the original Tower of Babel from a biblical standpoint. So I like the allusion to that. Moving on to the Death and the Maiden storyline, he pits daughter versus daughter. So he manipulates Talia and his other daughter, Nyssa, into turning on Batman and a number of other heroes. Long story short, Nyssa stabs Raish to kill him. His ultimate goal was sort of effective in the sense of like almost like a Zemo, where he personally didn't benefit from it, but his ultimate goal of getting these people to turn on each other and get them, I guess, their mindset to where he wants them was ultimately effective, because really Raish ends up dying, and Batman, in fact, oversees a cremation of his body. But Talia and Nyssa take over the League of Assassins, or the League of Shadows. I forget which one it is at that point.
It's okay.
But they see his side.
Right.
I think that was, pretty cool, the way that he was able to get that done. Moving on to the resurrection storyline. So as we just said, he's dead, but his spirit wants to return to a physical body, and he plans to use his grandson Damien as the vessel for his consciousness. But Damien wants no part of this. So his father, another character who's known as the Sensei, he fights Batman and dies. Raish was going to use his father's body. His father died, so now he wants to use the body of another son, an albino son named Dusan Al Ghul, also known as the White Ghost. Raish succeeds in transferring his spirit, but Dusan dies, and then Batman battles Raish and has him imprisoned in Arkham.
Yeah.
In the body of Dusan.
Right. I'm not so sure about Dusan, but I can tell you that we could probably eke out an episode about Sensei. There are a few comic issues, that go into his backstory as well. So he's not just thrown in for this storyline. It's pretty interesting. The idea that the father of someone that lives to be immortal, how is he around? Well, there's a reason for that. And it's just as messed up as you would think. I'll leave it at that.
Moving into the New 52, now he is the head of the League of Assassins. And I thought this one was just really out there, I'll just put it that way. He plans to create superhumans inside the bodies of sperm whales.
I got nothing. Not a thing.
What?
Nah.
That's not even like a regular what? That's like a WUT. Like what?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna incubate superhumans inside sperm whales.
Okay. I'll take it to a biological point. I mean, larvae of certain insects feed on the corpses of other insects while they're developing. Some species. I'm not going to get into which ones they are because I just don't remember off the top of my head. So in terms of an energy source, I'm dropping it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think you can equate superhumans to maggots.
Well, some villains do.
No, I'm pretty sure they just refer to the people as maggots.
Oh.
But they don't actually envision them as being birthed as a parasitic life form inside another life form. Just really, Raish, all the genius plans, you're supposed to be this tactical, brilliant guy, and this is the best you come up with? Growing people inside sperm whales?
I think we're going to get into why that's becoming a bad situation for Raish and how he deals with things.
So he ends up stealing the body of Damian Wayne, who was killed in other battles. So he steals the body of Damian Wayne to use for his own purposes, but Batman ends up recovering his son's corpse. There's a lot more to Raish. We could obviously spend another half hour going like full geek history lesson on this, but that's never the point of these podcasts. But let's get into the issues now. The first and foremost, Ra's al Ghul. He is, if you'll pardon the pun, batshit crazy because of the Lazarus Pits.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, I went there. It wrote itself. Come on, man.
Yes.
Come on. He has demonstrated that the Lazarus Pits may physically revive your body, but they take an extreme mental toll. He's been using the Lazarus Pits for centuries. So I understand he's brilliant and he's an incredible strategist, but he's nuts. I mean, I know that's not the technical term.
Yeah.
That's not I wouldn't say that degradingly to a normal person with mental issues. So I'll let you take the academic response to all of Rage's issues.
Sure. I can actually look at several medical conditions, and if you want a greater discussion of this, you can check our Deadpool episode. But when someone loses touch with reality or becomes so out of control with their behaviors and mood in such a relatively short period of time, we know we're not usually dealing with someone with bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. It's usually some underlying physiological cause. Ra's al Ghul is a great example of that. The idea that these Lazarus Pits, whatever the mechanism it is that allows the restoration of a person's body to continue at an adult functional level beyond elderly, because he's been around for hundreds of years doing this. It means that the aging process itself has to not just be stopped, it has to be somehow reversed. The cellular levels that have to be changed, the genetic levels, telomeres are built into our DNA structure so that after a certain period of time, it's kind of like it's time to go. So you're short-circuiting all of that somehow. I'm not going to, go into like science fiction of that. But the point being, you are reliving certain periods of your life over and over with the opportunity of doing something different. But still, it was after a point where your neurons, if you were quote unquote dying or dead, would not be at the proper functional level. They wouldn't be firing on all cylinders. So now you're saying, take someone in that state and keep it going and going and going. I'm not sure how that's...
Energizer Bunny style.
I wish. The Energizer Bunny still keeps beating that drum the same way. It's repetitive and it's easy to reproduce. Tell a human being to do something like that for 300 or 400 years. Nah, not going to go well. But in addition to that, even if you're not developing, let's say, a dementia or the colloquial term being senile, anything like that, it's been shown time and time again, there is some level of degradation in a person's memory after a certain age. Not to the point that they can't function. But I feel like with someone like Ra's, we're really testing that. How many times are you going to be able to say, like, oh, yeah, make sure you continue to have the exact same memories and everything else and be able to come up with all these great schemes and be a great productive leader and all of that. We get upset when people have too many terms in office. There's a reason for that, aside from the idea of absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's also, we know that it takes a toll on someone. Have you actually looked at what presidents look like before and after their terms in the United States? It's a huge difference. There's a reason for that. It's because we know stress ages a person. So now you're taking a gentleman that always puts himself in stressful situations because he wants that level of power, and you're saying do it ad infinitum. We're not talking about Vandal Savage being immortal, therefore has quote-unquote protections. We're talking about someone that keeps breaking down and found a way to basically patch himself up over and over again. It's not going to work. I'm sorry. The other part about having major physiological changes, if you've ever had someone in your family have a stroke and you notice that they recover, many people recover almost 100%. It's great when it happens until the next stroke happens. I haven't seen someone come back 100% from 2 strokes. Or 3, or however many they have. It's a downward, not a spiral, actually. It's more like a staircase. And if you actually ask someone, how can you tell something is vascular dementia, meaning their blood vessels are causing the problems that lead to their mental degradation? It's called a stepwise pattern because each event lowers the bar. So I think that's what's going on with someone like Ra's al Ghul. It's great that he's able to get the experience to kind of make up for those situations, but in the long run, it's just going down.
Well, My great uncle had a stroke, just the one, but it definitely had a detrimental impact because he was paralyzed on his one side for like a decade afterwards until he finally passed. And that was just the one stroke. So to your point that, yes, you go through something once, you can recover. You really are testing the odds the more you do it. And if he's been doing this for centuries, and again, I know it's comic books, but there is still some basis in physiological reality that repeated trauma, dare I say, because it's a traumatic event, or at least as it's been depicted in the media. It's not just, oh, I'm just going to go take a dip in the pool and come out and be fine. Revival via Lazarus Pit is a horrific ordeal. And to go through that repeatedly, I think just the physical act of going in and coming out of the Lazarus Pit is traumatic on the brain. Never mind whatever physical actual impacts it would have on your brain. Just the emotional stress and impact of going through the Lazarus Pits could change a person. And again, Raish has done this dozens of times, hundreds of times.
Yeah.
We don't know how many times. We know about 600 years worth, but so that's something to consider.
Right. Not to mention that he's always putting himself in harm's way. How many injuries that in theory for a younger man wouldn't be fatal, but you do that to someone that's elderly, it's a huge risk. We know that dealing with elderly patients. They're incredibly sensitive to outside stimuli. So he has to do that every time. Not to mention the idea, how often do you then have to worry about once you get past that initial threshold of when you are going to die and doing this again? Is it something that almost becomes exponential in terms of the need? I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing here, people. That's fascinating to me, and I don't think it's something that people in general want to experience. If anything, the opposite has happened in our society as a whole. Yes, we want people to hold on. We want people to live as long as they can, but we want them to have a good quality of life. If someone said to you, oh yeah, we can keep them alive, but they're going to be absolutely insane for a period of time and things are not going to automatically get better for them, I don't know many people that are going to sign up for that.
I was just thinking along the terms of repeatedly introducing yourself or repeatedly exposing yourself to the risk of trauma and danger.
Right.
Some people do that. How many Tough Mudders have I done? And I'm still here. I don't know what condition I'm in.
Yeah, but if you're going to make that comparison, do that when you set the record for age when you're 130 after you've had an experience of, let's say, a broken leg or a broken arm or a stroke. Tell me you're going to do that at that point. Now we're talking the level of Ra's al Ghul.
Duly noted. So the second thing we're going to discuss is this betrayal of everyone he's ever worked with. Ra's has stabbed his children in the back, sometimes literally. Over the centuries, he's turned on how many people that he's tried to work with. So this has left him very much in a position where he's lonely, dare I say. And I understand that he's in charge of the League of Shadows or the League of Assassins, and he's constantly setting up these organizations, Demon, again, League of Shadows, what have you, to take control and to run things. But those people are falling in line because of fear or money or power. It's certainly not out of any loyalty to Ra's. That, I think, has an impact. And that's something that I don't know that we see discussed all that often in comics, the notion of these villains, particularly. It's almost entirely villains who repeatedly lie and cheat and betray and backstab those closest to them. You can only go through that so many times before people go, you know what? That's it. I'm out. So his own family has left him and they've come back, I think, more due to proximity to power than anything else. But certainly I don't think it's out of familial bond. What can you tell us about that and what that does to someone's psyche?
It's amazing that Ra's has had as many accomplishments as he has, because in a weird way, I'll give a compliment that he must be an overwhelming presence. He must be singular of focus, because humans in general are very social creatures. And in the way he's portrayed, he usually does have a certain charm to him initially. But I think I said something similar with the governor. He does it more to soften the blow for whatever it is that comes next. he's not looking at it from the standpoint of, I want to develop a positive, healthy relationship with you. It's, I'm glad that I greased the wheels so that we can move forward with my plans to decimate the earth of humanity. That's not, first of all, that goal in and of itself is not going to get as many people on board. Second of all, you're going to really have to make it worth their while outside of anything that you think is important. So, yeah, he really doesn't get the idea that if he wanted to have a more productive system, he could, and I don't mean this in the generic be nice, he could recognize the value of having a loving relationship. I'm not denying that he, and I'm using air quotes right now, loves his daughter. I think Raish would even identify it as he recognizes he has to have a biological affection for someone that is his offspring. It's that calculated. It has nothing to do with the idea that he wants what's best for her. He wants her to agree with what's best for her in his own mind. And in life, I don't think we get that much. It's nice when our kids want to do what we want to do. It's nice when our kids want to follow in our footsteps. But it's rare to have that 100% lockstep. And most of humanity is able to accept that. Raish? Not so much. So it becomes a situation where it's literally join me or die. And he doesn't care what the connection is. If you're on board with him, he'll go along with it. If you have positive attributes, he'll acknowledge it. Detective to Batman, or wanting an heir or wanting someone to pick up the mantle. But if it's not there, he basically says, okay, never mind. It's all good. I got this. And the audacity to say, I got this no matter what, and I'm willing to just keep living no matter what, and I'm willing to harm everyone no matter what, that's difficult to combat. That's difficult to relate to on any level, whether you're a villain or a hero.
I was going to just bring it back to the notion that of talking about children, and we like when they do what we want them to do. But your point that society has accepted that that doesn't happen, I think, is very key to that. We understand collectively that children are independent beings and will eventually grow to become independent beings. I think that's just a societal norm. Raish doesn't want that. He wants unthinking followers. And it surprises me that in the DC universe, and of course, this is nothing that we could ever hope to or want to do in real life, but in the DC universe, he's certainly capable of creating automatons or just people that are willing to carry out his goals. Why he feels the need to perpetually force this upon his progeny, whether it's his daughters or his son or other people, why he doesn't just get an army of clones to do his bidding or to brainwash people. Certainly someone with Raish's status and assets and wealth and power and all the things that he's accumulated over centuries, much like Vandal Savage, why he doesn't just create an army of automatons or robots or clones or whatever to do his bidding. What is it specifically about the fact that he keeps coming back to his children?
That's an excellent question. Wow.
I like to think I ask good questions every once in a while.
Right, but usually I can come up with something fairly quickly. In this case, I definitely have to ponder that a bit. Okay, I'm not saying that Raish is not human. He still has those traits. It's just incredibly utilitarian of him towards humanity. In other words, I think he likes the idea of having a dynasty. He likes the idea that he's able to live on. And maybe he's still holding on to a part of him that thought that that was going to happen perfectly with his offspring. And the fact that it hasn't, in a weird way, allows him to move on. I hesitate to say it that way because there's no such thing as moving on from the next generation. They're the ones that are supposed to continue no matter what. It's going to happen regardless of if he wants it to or not. He hasn't come to that inevitability. He is still stuck with the idea that if people follow what I do, we can have an ideal world with everyone having their own unique presentations. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. It does not. But it doesn't have to, because he doesn't have to explain himself to anyone. He doesn't need someone to point out basically the holes in his logic. He's running the show from the start, and heaven forbid someone actually tries to point out flaws, tries to point out his blind spots, because they're going to be cut down. And I don't mean that metaphorically.
Well, I think that actually the last part of that ties very well into the next issue that we're going to discuss, where you talk about the fact that he's not able to let go and he's not able to allow the next generation to take control and move forward. As we've talked before we started recording, you said that Ra's al Ghul has one of the worst cases of nostalgia bias in comics that you've ever seen. I'm just going to let you elaborate on that.
Sure. Nostalgia bias refers to the idea that a previous time that you've experienced in your life is the ideal for the rest of your life. It's not just saying, hey, I remember that party I went to. That was cool. It's the 80s are the single greatest decade, and everything that society accomplished during that time should be the way things always remain. There's a pretty big difference there. You can enjoy previous parts of your life. You can enjoy previous experiences. You can even try and recreate the feeling of those experiences. But it can lead to some questionable decisions if you're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Whatever has happened in the past is in the past. You can certainly learn from it. You can certainly build on things that have happened before, and I hope that everyone does. That's wonderful. But when you get to the point of someone like Ra's al Ghul, who was in a completely different culture, in a completely different era, and say that the way that the world, the way that the planet physically looked is better then than it is now, I can understand. Maybe you can bring forward some of those ideas. Being eco-friendly is something that has become very popular, and it's important. I'm not going to get into debates as to how far it should go or what people should specifically do, but I am going to say that thinking that's the only way that anything is ever going to work because that's the way you personally experienced it, that's pretty selfish. And it's going to be difficult for anyone of a different era to automatically connect with you. You put up an automatic barrier that's not going to just go away. Because once again, you're not just dealing with what's good, you're dealing with what's ideal. Once a person thinks something is ideal, it's something that's worth fighting to the death for. If you go that far with other people that may have similar biases, because the point of a bias is not that it's inherently wrong or evil. It's that it exists because we're not infallible. So if you develop your own bias and someone else has a bias that is in direct conflict, it doesn't matter what either side's goals are. It's just going to automatically create damage. It's going to create conflict. It's not going to create reasonable discussion. And if there's one thing that we've learned from Ra's is that he doesn't have reasonable discussions. He gives commands. That's it. But the example I was giving is, if you're a child of the 60s versus a child of the 80s or 90s, people can at least relate to that within relative lifetimes. We're talking about Ra's al Ghul, where the bias is centuries difference. That's, a pretty big scale to pull someone in. And Can you imagine the transitions that he had to make with technology and everything else? Once again, that's a direct contrast to someone like Vandal Savage. Savage, whatever he was, he made sure that he blended in. Ra's al Ghul, nah, not so much.
So do you think Raish's motto is make Arabia great again?
I am not touching that with a
39.5 foot pole.
Oh my gosh. No, I would say it would be closer to make the planet great again.
Okay.
Make the planet green again. Boom. There it is.
Go. With a green hat, not a red one.
Right. You got it.
Okay. That's something I can get behind. That kind of MAGA or Mtpliga.
Wow.
I can get behind that.
Oh boy.
Moving into treatment in universe.
Wow. This is going to sound so cruel, but it's comics, so I'll do what I want. I've mentioned in the past that there are ways to deal with death and dying in a dignified manner. If someone's in pain, there's something called palliative care. If someone has a terminal illness, you can refer them to hospice and let people do things with dignity. Ra's gave up on that idea a long time ago. So I'm going to make a real tough decision here. I'm going to enlist every hero, every officer, person of command I can. And because I know Ra's wouldn't give this to me, I'm going to try and find every single Lazarus Pit. And until we get something that's a bit more under control, I'm shutting them down. Because I think Ra's needs to get reconnected with the idea that humanity involves death. It involves finality. You got to come to terms with it. You don't get to hit the reset button over and over again. I think his mindset would change drastically if he truly realized, however long it is now, this is his last shot to make a difference. This is his last shot to connect with the people that he has used for so long.
Interesting. So you take that away from him and see what he does with his last life.
Right. Because that's when you find out what's really important. You don't want regrets on your deathbed. You don't want what ifs. This man has had centuries where he should not have what ifs, and yet he's gone down the same road over and over again. And I don't know if he'd be really satisfied with those results. So once he has that dissonance, the idea that, wow, I may have wasted so much time, that's where I step in and say, well, it doesn't have to be that way right now. So how do we change?
Now, much like we said with Vandal Savage last week, the immortality makes translating to a real life out of universe treatment difficult.
And once again, I got an idea. Don't worry.
Then I will let you run with it.
Okay. The idea that someone has lived a life longer than they expected and doesn't have the people that they would expect around them, because we mentioned his loneliness. So in other words, I'll give an example that is not far off from a real life case. Elderly gentleman originally diagnosed with a type of cancer that has a very poor prognosis, was supposed to die pretty much within a year. He's divorced. Children don't talk to him. This is before the cancer, so that's not the cause of it. But the point is, he's alone, and he's still going. He went through treatment, actually had surgery, something called a Whipple procedure, where the pancreas and a few other organs are actually, a lot of it is removed. And he survived. At this point, we're in uncharted territory. Wasn't really supposed to last this long to begin with. Totally despondent, basically, because that person had actually made peace. They said, I was ready to go, and I got nothing. So then what do you do with someone like that? Well, you basically guide them along the way to rebuild. I can't make promises to that person that they're going to get the relationships back that they lost. You can't automatically say, oh, yeah, just get married to your wife again and, just bring the kids back. It may not happen at all. but you do your best to learn from their previous experiences. What did they enjoy? What were their goals? Because usually diagnoses of certain types of cancer, in this case, I was talking about pancreatic cancer, they hit you hard because you were doing so much with your life at the time, and they just stop you dead in your tracks. No pun intended. If this gentleman was in the midst of doing something that they considered to be important, that's a simple starting point. All right, can you get back to what you were doing? If it was something that was incredibly physical, maybe they were training for a marathon, something like that. Okay, well, you may not get right back to that point. Let's see if we can get you back to running a mile. Work with the small goals and other interests. You're once again, and I know I've mentioned this in other episodes, becoming a surrogate. You're representing the types of relationships that this person may be able to still have in their lives if they give themselves the opportunity. Depending on their age, it may be more difficult. I mean, with children, it's really simple. You tell them they're going back to school, they have the opportunity to make plenty of friends. If someone's in the midst of their working career, they can have work-related colleagues. If someone is more on the elderly side and their cohort is actually shrinking because the people around them are also dying, that can be a bit of an issue too. But it also stems back to what I think can be a positive with nostalgia bias. I mentioned the previous episode. When it comes to history, you can learn from it. Otherwise, you're doomed to repeat it. Well, maybe the next generation doesn't have to be doomed to repeat it if you're able to teach it. If you're able to explain how your experiences in the past relate to today so that they can make better decisions. Or if you made good decisions in the past, you can explain what your process was, because processes often just need a slight tweaking to work in the future. So giving a person a goal, even if people are complete strangers, but if you have knowledge to give, that's always valuable. And if you can help the person adapt to an unexpected situation at a late age, that can be one of the most rewarding feelings anyone can have as a therapist.
Fantastic. And that also, I think, not only goes to the therapist, but also to teachers just in general. Teachers that understand that they've unlocked something in a student and that they've created a desire to learn more in a student. That is very similar, and that I would argue is similarly rewarding for the teachers.
Absolutely. It's one of the rare opportunities, because when we talk about legacy, gotta do it. Gotta put the Hamilton in there. You know, it's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. This is one of the few times you actually start to see those seedlings grow.
And you get to determine who tells your story.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. I brought it back even further.
Yeah.
Who lives, who dies, who tells your story.
Yep.
Well, we sang Hamilton last week. We just referenced it this week.
Right.
I don't think we'll be singing, though, when we get Ra's al Ghul on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Ra's. I'm Dr. Issues.
Good evening, Doctor.
There are so many things we could discuss right now. Where would you like to begin?
I understand that time is precious for both of us, but if you'll indulge me, there are a few details that I think are pertinent to any session being productive.
Okay.
Let's start with some basics. Going back, about 562 years ago, I was... or was it 565? No, it was definitely 562 because...
Mr. Al Ghul.
No, I recall I was in Alexandria at the time, and I just left Morocco, and that was 563 years ago, so...
We don't have to go year by year.
No, I'm sorry. It was definitely 565 years. Now, I remember now specifically. It started in Morocco, and...
One eternity later.
And that's when I learned that's how you load a musket. Doctor, are you listening?
Yes, every word.
Anyway, where was I?
Okay, so with all of your experiences, you seem to have an axe to grind with the direction society has taken, so much so that you prolong your life to fight every step of the way. Is that really the best path for you?
If others shared my vision and zeal for correcting the course of humanity, I wouldn't have to keep returning. Sadly, no one else will carry my mantle except for my daughters, And even then, only when it suits them.
That path will evolve over time by your hand or others.
Is it not the great lie that is spread, though, that one person can in fact change the world? Is that not what we tell our children, our grandchildren? How can I perpetuate that falsehood if I do not do my part in upholding it? You see, Doctor, I am one of the only, if not the only person, who sees through the facade, and I'm doing my best to expose the truth. Humanity is doomed as it stands currently. I'm willing to do what is necessary to save us all, because I alone possess the fortitude to make the sacrifices.
And yet you began by talking about someone else picking up your mantle. I mean, you'll never have a clone. How close do they have to be? 80%? 90%? Stop hitting one note when you have the opportunity to create a symphony.
But your metaphor is misplaced, Doctor. When one note can make the difference between a symphony and cacophony, you make certain that each note is pitch perfect. I'm merely starting with the opening chord.
And you're doing that for over 500 years? I mean, when's the next piece, the next chord?
When humanity gets the notes right. When someone else joins me to write.
I'm sure you appreciate that humanity is slow to understand anything.
When you've been around for 600 years, everything is slow.
Mr. Ghul, do you value your daughter?
Of course, you simpleton. I value all of my children and grandchildren.
Then you would value the one who gave rise to Damian Wayne.
Talia has been difficult at times, yes, but I love her in spite of her obsession with Bruce Wayne.
I've noticed that despite your status, you allow her those dalliances. You value her independence that much?
She always comes around.
So despite her not following your exact path, you're saying she's able to converge at some level, and she's able to do that in a culture where a female has never been considered on the same level as a man. I mean, that's interesting foresight. That's one that's not welcomed from when you were even born.
The notion of you, a black man, speaking to me with such flippancy would not be welcomed from when I was born, or even 50 years ago. Do not mistake the cultural advances with adherence to my goals.
Excuse my level of candor, but I've certainly learned in my brief time on this planet that someone as revered as you, in certain circles anyway, doesn't also want a sycophant. I understand that you've had centuries of experience, but based on your reaction, navigating these crucial social norms is of the utmost importance. If you want true change for all society, at some point, you're going to have to connect on that level.
So if I want to direct the change I seek, I should have to play along with these simpletons? Why should I debase myself and dilute the sanctity of my goals?
I'll tell you, because at this rate, you're truly going to be walking the path with fewer people as you find fewer connections. You're saying the pool is diluted? I disagree. I think the pool is simply changed.
Then I will just keep utilizing my Lazarus Pits until I have perfected the virus. And once my daughter and that wretched detective has stopped poisoning my grandson against me...
Whoa, your grandson? Now you care? From what you're telling me, you're more concerned about making sure the virus survives this world. That's your legacy? Ra's al Ghul, master of the Lazarus Pits and the virus, so he outlasts the world. Compared to what you were starting with, that sounds way off to me.
For such a seemingly educated mind, you are frighteningly myopic. I will not waste any more of my precious time on you.
Mr. Ghul?
No, 562 years ago.
Oh no.
Kind of seems like you were dealing with Grampa Simpson there.
A little bit. I'm just disappointed that he never called me detective.
I don't know that he would have ever gotten that or given that to you.
Maybe if I listened to all 500 plus years of his history, I don't know.
Maybe, but I think you'd be dead and he'd be referring to your corpse or your skeleton.
Yeah, fair enough.
So that's going to just about wrap it up for this week. Next week is Halloween. Ooh, spooky, scary. I'm gonna go into a whole thing on Halloween. I'm warning you now for the Norman Osborn episode, because that's what we're doing next week. To tie in with Halloween, we're going to be covering the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, and all of his various issues, and he has many.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna also unload some of my personal thoughts on Halloween.
All right, that's really cool. I mean, we had already done Scarecrow. We could have done that. I guess we could have done the Spectre. Ghost. Hey, but yeah, whatever.
So we'll do Green Goblin, and then at some point in the month of November, we're going to we're discussing with our president level patrons who they want us to do, and we're also going to be looking to hopefully record our crossover episode with our friends over at Popcorn Psychology at some point, and we'll be doing the Incredible Hulk for that episode. We know we'll be doing the Hulk with Popcorn Psychology. We just don't know when exactly that is going to be yet. It's a matter of working out the schedule, but we're very excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for us to be on their show and for them to be on ours. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a nice marriage of the styles.
Yeah, I think the listeners are going to be green with envy.
As always, you can check us out on our website, capesonthecouch.live. We are available through Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and soon to be Spotify. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. Leave a positive rating and review. You can also check us out on our Facebook page. You can check us out on Twitter at Capes on the Couch. We have an email address, capesonthecouch@gmail.com. We have our Patreon where you can subscribe. There's a whole host of ways you can get in touch with us. Both myself and Dr. Issues also have personal Twitter accounts, Anthony Sitko and Doc Issues, so you can tweet at us and let us know what you thought of this and or any other episodes. So, Doc, anything you want to add before we leave?
There's nothing wrong with wanting to live a long life. Just don't do it at the expense of everything in terms of enjoyment.
Very well said. So for Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.